Hey guys, my name is Kevin Garrett, and today I'll be using my battling experience to determine just how good Niantic could make Infernape if they actually gave it the right move pool. Infernape is the final evolution of the starter Pokemon Chimchar, which is the subject of the November 16th Community Day. Now, as a fire starter goes, Infernape is a fire and fighting type, and it has the lowest combat power of all the fire starters, and this is due to the fact that it has, in the main series, equal special attack as well as physical attack. And since it's not a specialist, it actually gets docked through the calculation. In addition to the fact that it has a high speed stat, which accounts for very little in Pokemon Go. It should account for more, which I'll get into later. In terms of resistances, it has a double resistance to bug and single resistances to dark, fire, grass, ice, and steel. And it's of course vulnerable to flying, ground, psychic, and water. As far as its existing move pool, it gets Fire Spin and Rock Smash, and Rock Smash is a poor excuse for a fast move, so it's pretty much exclusively running Fire Spin at this point in time. And as far as the charge moves go, it has Flamethrower, Close Combat, and Solar Beam. Solar Beam and Close Combat both have high energy activation costs, meaning that Flamethrower is going to be the primary attack that you'll be using. And there you have Blast Burn, which is the anticipated Community Day move. It's a significant upgrade, but is it enough to make it a top meta threat? The short answer is no. It needs a little bit more help to become meta relevant. So in order to do that, we're going to take a look at what moves it has access to in the main series, and which of those could translate to its Pokemon Go move pool. As far as fast moves go, it has access to Shadow Claw, Counter, and Poison Jab through the main series, as well as for the charge moves Rock Slide, Grass Knot, Thunder Punch, Power Punch, Blaze, Kick, Stone Edge, and also Earthquake, but the last few are not super relevant after having gone through several simulations. Now here we're comparing the moves it could get to the ones it already has, and as you can see, all three of the moves for the fast moves have quicker energy gains than Fire Spin and Rock Smash, which would be significant for increasing the speed of Infernape in the Pokemon Go sense, which is launching charge moves faster. So what can Infernape do to become more successful? The first thing is speed through the activation of its charge moves, and the second one is diversity. They gave it fairly good diversity with Close Combat and Solar Beam, but those moves aren't really compatible with its stats. Infernape needs moves that have quicker activation before it can perish, and as you can see, moves like Thunder Punch, Grass Knot, and Rock Slide would be much better and more significant charge moves, given that they have a realistic firing time with Infernape stats. So what I'm going to do is take a look at simulations of these moves against various Great League situations, both the entire Great League as a whole, as well as the top 35 Great League meta threats, and also do a little bit of a comparative analysis with Silph Arena relevancy, particularly the Kingdom Cup in the case of Counter and its existing move Fire Spin. Infernape in the main series was known as a very fast attacker, and moves like Stealth Rock and U-Turn were significant in its usage. Unfortunately, none of those moves exist in the Pokemon Go database. So these are things, part of the flavor that's missing as it translates to Pokemon Go. So here's the results from the different simulations, and as you can see, its existing move pool before the Community Day, it's really only winning in no shield situations, and very few of them at that, under 50% win percentage in no shields, and less than 30% in both one shield and two shield situations. Once it receives Blast Burn, it increases quite a bit, up to 59%, which is respectable. But then when you take a look at the top 35 Great League meta, you see that it's suffering. It drastically drops to 51%, and in 1 and 2 shield situations, below 30% once again. So not a substantial gain from Blast Burn, although it is quite welcome. So I found two movesets that function very well in slightly different ways. The first of which is Shadow Claw, Thunder Punch, and Blast Burn. Now, what this moveset has going for it is the very rapid energy gain, as well as Thunder Punch, which provides not only the coverage and diversity of the attack, but also with baiting shields. And in each of these simulations against all of the threats, almost every single time the kill move from Infernape would be Blast Burn. So it's absolutely significant to charge and get to the charge Blast Burn as quick as possible, as well as releasing the enemy's shields as quick as possible. And as you can see, Infernape functions quite differently with Shadow Claw and Thunder Punch, because suddenly it becomes just as good in the 1 shield situation as it does in the no shield situation, which is over 60% win percentage with both moves. And if we look at the top 35 Great League, the results are consistent. Out of the 35, it gets 21 and 19 wins respectively for no shields and 1 shield, which is significant. It would greatly bolster its status as a threat in the Great League. And the major things that it would be taking out in this case are steel types, with the exception of Bastiodon, since it has the rock subtyping, which means that none of these moves would be super effective, and ironically, as a fighting type, it would be vulnerable to Bastiodon. But it would handle a lot of the steel types, especially the ones, it would counteract the ones with the psychic subtyping. So it would be a very potent threat in the Great League. Now, if we take a look at the move Counter, Rock Slide, and Blast Burn, a bit different on the results, because Counter receives stab, so it's extremely powerful, and the energy charging is just marginally greater than Fire Spin, but it's not as quick as Shadow Claw, which means that it would have to rely more on the fast move damage that it's getting from Counter to augment the overall performance. And with Counter, the ideal complementary charge move would be Rock Slide, since it has both coverage and also finishing strength, and still an energy activation below that of Blast Burn. So it wouldn't have the same shield baiting potential as the Thunder Punch and Shadow Claw moveset. As you can see, the difference between the 1 shield situation has 20 fewer wins in the total Great League, and a few less wins in the top 35 meta. The upside to counter Infernape is greater than Shadow Claw. As you can see, it has 71% just about win percentage in the no shield situations, but then in the shielded situations, its outlooks are not as promising as Shadow Claw. Now, you could argue that its existing moveset of Fire Spin, Close Combat, and what will be Blast Burn will be better than Counter, Rock Slide, and Blast Burn, which, according to the current metagame, which is likely to shift down the road, is true. However, if you look at Counter as a potent tool, take into example the Kingdom Cup for the Sylph Arena, and you can see that Infernape would win 82.5% of the time in no shield situations, and even in 2 shield situations it would still be winning over 70% of the time, which the Fire Spin set can't compare to. So in terms of actually adding some moves of substance to Infernape's move pool, Counter would be a very welcome addition, even though Shadow Claw might provide more upside and authentic flavor to Infernape relative to its main series performance. And just worthy to note that Blaze Kick functions similarly to Thunder Punch, in that it receives 20 wins against the top 35 meta in both no shield and one shield situations. So, but what Blaze Kick is lacking is one, the coverage of Thunder Punch, and it's a little bit slower to activate of Thunder Punch. So what Blaze Kick essentially would do is only solidify the matchups that Infernape already succeeds in, and it wouldn't really add anything new that Thunder Punch would. So as far as which moveset would be the best, there's no clear defined answer, but there's two very clear upgrades that it could receive, and that is with Shadow Claw and Thunder Punch, or with Counter and Counter and Rock Slide. Although Counter and Thunder Punch isn't a slouch in its own right. In terms of other possibilities I could get, Power Up Punch would provide it with some flavor, a la the Swords Dance and Nasty Plot movesets that it uses in the main series. However, since the nerf to Power Up Punch in the no shield situations, it would basically be Blast Burn or Bust, and then it would lose the diversity of being able to hit various threats in the metagame that the Thunder Punch and Rock Slide movesets would possess instead. However, in the two shield situation, Power Up Punch and Counter is fascinating, has over a 60% win rate, which is the best out of all of Infernape's two shield situations. Now, as far as alternatives go for Infernape, we could see a buff to close combat, similar to what we saw for Psychic, right? It's one of the best moves in the main series, but it's untapped, relatively speaking, in Pokemon Go. If they reduce the energy activation to a level that could fire realistically, and instituted a 100% one-stage defense drops like it does in the main series, then it would be an absolutely formidable move, and Infernape would be covered very nicely. Even with the existing Fire Spin, since it would present an option to hit steel types like Bastiodon that take neutral damage from fire. Also, it could receive a move like Mach Punch, which is seen in the main series on Swords Dance and Choice Band sets. And if it was a quick move and it had the stats of Thunder Shock or Mud Shot, which is 1.5 damage per turn and 4.5 energy per turn, it could effectively have over a 70% win rate for Infernape, which would make it a, I wouldn't say not a top meta threat, but it would make it a very respectable meta threat, and one that would speak very well to the flavor of Infernape in the main series, and help it realize its full translation into Pokemon Go and these mechanics. The other possibility is a move called U-Turn, which should probably be the subject of its own video, but what would be fascinating about U-Turn is if it required a switch that didn't switch lock via a timer, and if it had lower activation energy than Blast Burn, it could be used to farm up and then fish for advantageous matchups while locking the opponent in place, and that would spice up the metagame quite a bit. But once again, subject for another video. If you like this content, give me some feedback. If you have something specific that you would like to see me run simulations on to see just how good Niantic can make it, leave it down below. Take care, guys.